All right, welcome to the Elden Ring animation breakdown. If you're here watching this, it means you purchased this course, and so I just want to say thank you so much. It means a ton to me, more than I could explain. Second, I'm going to try to make everything as clear and giving you my way of thinking about this to where you can start implementing some of these like creative tactics into your edits to where you're not just showing clip after clip after clip. You can actually design some cool stuff and animate it and really bring it to life, and it'll make everything stick out more for you. So yeah, the main two things I've been seeing on the like TikTok comments at least is how did I make the map animation. So we're gonna break that down first because this will be Photoshop, then we will go into After Effects for the full animation, then we will go into Premiere Pro for the sound design and whatnot. But first off, I'm not too well versed in Photoshop, but if you have a decent understanding of After Effects, Photoshop is really pretty easy to understand. Um, so let's get into it. I'll show you guys how I got the game map, and pretty simple. I just went to Google and typed in Elden Ring map. I went to images and I found this one. You can tell that someone on Reddit has masked out like the borders and stuff and really kept just the main map. And you could do this yourself. Um, this one, the side of Graces were showing a little bit too much. These were a bit smaller and it was a lot more zoomed out. So I went with this one, just right click, saved image as, and it's 6500 by 6800, which is huge. So that means the quality is going to look really, really good when it's in like a regular After Effects composition that's like 1920 by 1080. Even if you're working in 4K, which is 3840 by 2160 or backwards, this would still look really good because this is a huge map. The next thing to get the logo, same thing, Elden Ring logo, images. I could have gone with this one, this one as well. I didn't know this was a GIF actually, but or just this, but I went with this one because the logo kind of has that ink and hand drawn look right here, where it's not like perfect. It's got some texture to it. It's flawed basically, and so I think it looks really good and like it belongs on some sort of map. And I kept the text here because I wanted people to know as soon as the edit started playing that it was Elden Ring. So yeah, just saved both of those as PNG, drop them in here, and now we will go over the textures and whatnot because that's going to be a big thing. Texturizing your designs and even your edits a lot of time, depending on what you're doing. Paper texture is like a big main one that people use. Concrete texture is good. But for the sake of this, I wanted to make it a map. And so the first thing I knew I needed was some sort of paper texture. And so I have a lot of, in my documents, like paper textures. You can go to a site called Texture Labs, and they've got a ton of free, really high quality, great textures you can choose from. But this 18 is just like a paper texture that I have. It's more of a vintage paper texture. You can see that there's some like blemishes all around here, and I threw a hue and saturation to darken it up on top of it. The only thing I added to the map was a drop shadow, so you can like kind of see that. I wanted to make it feel like it was sitting on top of the, I guess make it more 3D and give it a little bit more depth. The next thing I threw on top of the map was a white crumbled paper texture. And so yeah, again, it's just we're just slowly building like the things that would be on an old Elden Ring style map. it would have like crumples. It would be like old feeling. It would have a really warm and like brown tone. So same thing. Here I added a levels just to bring the brights up and kind of give the darkness a little bit more of a punch, if that makes sense. The next thing I added was just a grunge overlay, and it actually worked really well. I think I probably could have turned it down. The opacity's at 65% and it's set to subtract. And obviously with your overlays, you're going to need to change the blending mode, which is all of these. But yeah, I didn't want it to be like a lighter color like white, because that just wouldn't really make much sense here. The only other thing I have are these like kind of waves that you can see, and they're just like hand-drawn wave PNGs. You can probably search them up on Google. I got them off of Envato. I pay around, I think it's like $30 a month for an Envato subscription. They have a lot of good stuff. I use it for a lot of my client work and stuff like that, so it's very useful for me. But yeah, I got those waves just to give it more of a map feeling. Like a lot of like game and like kind of any movies you watch, like if they have a map like this, a lot of times it will be like these hand-drawn waves. They might have like a compass up here, which I had one down here, but it didn't end up making it in the animation, so I just deleted it. Next, I have this paper texture from Texture Labs thrown on top of it. It looks really good. I think adds even more like dark spots, like, you know, maybe somebody spilled something on it or it's just got dirt on it. And on top of all of these layers is a hue saturation to give it more of a vintage feel. And then the last thing I have is another crumpled paper texture, just to kind of drive it home a little bit more, and it's set to multiply. So yeah, a lot of these are set to multiply to bring out, like, to get rid of the whites and bring out the darks and the blacks and stuff like that. So this is what it ended up looking like in Photoshop. And now we're going to jump into After Effects, and I'll show you guys how I layered all that and composited it and animated it in 3D to get it to be the opening sequence that it was. All right, guys, welcome to the After Effects breakdown. We're obviously going to start with the intro and the map animation. So not going to waste any time. We'll get right into it. You can easily drag your Photoshop compositions into After Effects by going to wherever you saved the Photoshop file. So you can see this is a .psd file, and you just open it, footage, merge layers, click OK, drag that onto your timeline, and then what you can do is you can right click, go to create, convert to layered comp. You'll need to probably go in here and you can press Command K or Control K on Windows. I'm on Mac. Or just go up to composition and go to your composition settings, and the duration here is like 1 frame basically, and I would just change it to something like 20 or 10, however long. But anyways, yeah, so after you drag it in, right click it, create, convert to layered comp, you can go into it, you can go into it again, and it has all of your layers from Photoshop. So I'm just gonna undo that because I've already done it. The first thing I needed to do was I needed to scale everything down, because the Elden Ring logo and all of that stuff, as you can see here, was too far up and too scaled up basically. But how I did that was, the first thing I did was I just shrunk the game map to, like, it was at 100, which it's 100 here, but I shrunk it to 72. You'll see in just a second what I'm talking about. The other thing I did was I linked these waves right here, and also the logo right there, to a null, and I just pulled the null down by, again, it was at 100, so it looked like that. and I just pulled it down to 72% where it was more centered in the map. And the reason I did that was because when I was trying to animate the camera in 3D, there was a cutoff point and you could just see like where the map ended. This was the easiest fix for me to just like immediately do. But yeah, so the way I have this unfolding pretty much is with these ink overlays, and you can find them you can find them on YouTube and just download them. Again, I use Envato for a lot of my stuff, but basically I pre-comped the Elden Ring map, and then I threw on this ink overlay that I scaled down, rotated, and positioned how I wanted it to be. And again, I matted the map to this ink overlay. So I also spread it out by like 7 frames, just for timing's sake with the animation. So this is what it looks like. So yeah, that's how the map unfolds, and it's the same exact thing as the logo. And the logo has, if I can find the ink, yeah. This is the ink overlay for the logo. So it's the exact same one I used on the map. Sorry, it's not playing great. There's a lot of layers. And yeah, the logo is just matted to this ink overlay, and it spreads out and unveils itself like that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, so I have these waves. Yeah, these waves right here that I just have in their own composition, or they were in a folder on Photoshop. But I have them doing a very small animation that you can see, and the way I achieved that was I put a turbulent displace on there. These are my settings, 15, and the size is 50. And then I keyframed the evolution with an expression of time times 25. It was the perfect amount of like just movement that I needed. If you do something like 200, you can tell it's just going to be probably like too much. Yeah, even with it, the playback being slow, it's just way too much. So yeah, it's times 25, and you could easily just like, you know, keyframe the evolution at 0, go to the end, and loop it however many times you want. But expressions, if you can use them, I would start learning them. I don't know a lot. The main one I know is this time one, and posterize and like wiggle and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so this is the map animation. And here's it in its full comp. Again, it's just not gonna load. There's so much in this in this edit, as you can see. Mainly a lot of these layers are like one framers and transitions, but no, we will keep breaking it down, and go step by step. I'm going to mute the audio though, just so it's not annoying, and we will go straight into like the compositing for this. So the first thing I did is here we have the map layer. Turn it off, it doesn't show. It's exactly what I was just showing you. And what I did was I had to make sure that everything in this composition was 3D just about. So not all of it's 3D. This hue saturation just didn't need to be. The null didn't need to be either, because all I did was scale it down. I didn't use any 3D properties. So yeah. We have the map in 3D, and it is being controlled by a position control null object and a rotation control null object, and there's also a camera. So I like to name my layers as best I can. So we have S control for like this one, which is scale control, and P control for it as well, which is position control, and the main clip is connected to the scale, and the scale is connected to the position. So, so yeah, I do that with each layer just to help with the movement and for being organized. But so yeah, the keyframes go like this. We have a X rotation that's set at a value of 19. We have a Y and Z rotation. And the way I did this is you can just, on the position, you can right click and do separate dimensions. I didn't use the X position at all for this. So, you know, when I press U, I just wanted the two that I'm using to pop up. So yeah, they start here, right where the logo is, if it's even gonna load. And they just pull back, and they also go down the map while everything's, you know, animating. But the other thing I have is a light, and the light is animated with a few different things. The first thing being position. A lot of people use these two views. I'm just like not a huge fan. I kind of just I never really used it while learning 3D in After Effects, so I use it sometimes if I really need to, but for this tutorial I'm not going to use it. I'm sorry if you use it a lot and you would rather me show it, but I think just kind of moving values around, you can really find where things need to go in 3D. And if not, you know, if push comes to shove, I will open up two views and figure that out. But so I have position keyframe. In the light options, it's set to a spot. The intensity here at the start is at 83. The cone feather is at 100. And then it gets to, you know, obviously change the position. The intensity bumps up to 107, and the cone feather goes down to 25. And so yeah, I have it like kind of darkened, and you can see that it's more covering this area on the left, and then it starts moving to the center and going down with the animation. But yeah, I did a light just to give it some realism. I'll show you what happens when I turn it off. It just looked like this. So the light adds, again, like a spot of light that it can follow. There's some drop off on the sides here. All the way up here, I have a vignette, which helps a lot. And then there's grain over the whole edit, just because I felt like it fit the Elden Ring kind of style, to fit the grungy paper old kind of look. The other thing I have is a dust. Let me see if you can really see it at the start, I believe. Yeah, just some dust, because why would there not be dust here? Again, it just adds another depth. It gives it some more 3D and believability, compositing basically. So yeah. It's just kind of flying across the screen here. It kind of goes away when the light picks up, which is fine. And now the way I did this transition to go from the map into this whole scene. So the first thing I did was I have this ink. Let's see if it's going to show. No, we'll have to turn that here. So I have this ink overlay of a little ink blot dropping, and as soon as it drops, it spreads. So there's a cut here, and this cut right here is just for the drop. So I wanted it to be visible in the edit, which you more so feel it than see it, kinda. You might see it for like one frame, maybe two. But this other layer is just a cut to when the ink spreads out. I think I have it keyframed of the scale to spread out and cover the full screen. But we'll turn that back off. I might have messed it up. Let's just undo until we get back to where we were. Yeah, okay. So the next thing that I have is this intro scene. So it's literally just a pre-comp of this ink blot revealing this scene, which, you know, find your clips however you do, but and then it's obviously it's time remapped with two different keyframes. There is some forced motion blur to help give it a little bit more of a pull, if that's the right word for it, I guess. But yeah, so I have at the beat drop right here on the audio layer, I have the intro scene, which is the, you know, again, this clip. It is matted to this ink layer. So it, boom, the ink drop hits and it starts spreading around the map, doing its thing. The only other thing I have to just add more to it was I duplicated this layer that the intro scene is matted to, and I put it under, stay with me now, I put it under the intro scene to give it more color here, to make it feel a little bit more like a transition. I kind of wanted to give it a burn feeling, but that didn't really work, so I just, like, again, kept it. I did as much compositing as I could, not compositing, color correction as I could, or color grading as I could, to help it get this red kind of look. And again, the way I got it to look like this was I threw on an edge detect, which is a Sapphire plugin. I have a Colorama effect with the fire and smoke preset, and then I have deep glow on it. This is what it looks like without. So then we added Colorama, deep glow, fast box blur, because these edges are a little rough. So yeah, it's just to help, again, with making it feel like it was burning, which it didn't really work, and it happened so fast you can't really tell. The other thing I did to help with this transition is I have an exposure and blur layer right here, keyframed from, yeah, exposures at 0, gammas at 1, base settings for everything. The blurriness on this Gaussian blur is at 0, and then as soon as it hits on this beat, the exposure's at 0.5, gamma's at 0.7, and blurriness is at 20, and then it just everything goes back to 0. The next thing I have is this ripple effect, which, let me turn this blur off and you might be able to see it. It's very subtle. I'll zoom in here. You can kind of see the outlines if I turn it off. But yeah, I wanted to feel like when that ink blot hit, it was like it dropping in water almost and sending out a ripple. And the keyframes here are just like the radius is at 0, the phase is at the start, or at 0, and then it goes to a radius of 25, the phase is at 45, and it ends at a phase of 90 and a radius of 0. So it's just a quick little, can't even really tell, you more so feel it. Could I have gone without it? Maybe, but I think it worked here. I think it worked. So yeah, this is the main intro sequence. Hopefully I covered everything that you guys needed from this. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. No. And then next, you know, like, if you're here, you have a good idea of how, I'm assuming, how to time remap and how to even make a flow edit, quote unquote. But right here, I just have some impact frames. This is an offset and directional blur. I have the offset set to where it kind of, it's pulled down on the Y position. Yeah. To mimic this hit coming down, right? You can't even see it, actually. This coming down. I wouldn't want to go, like, horizontally with this because it just wouldn't make sense. That's why the direction of of the directional blur is set at 0. I could have turned it a little bit this way to match that, but it, you know, it being at 0 is perfectly fine. The blur length is at 100. There's no keyframes on this layer, so just to go frame by frame, it hits, boom, explosion, and it goes right into, blends perfectly into Radon pulling his swords out and like rocks kind of going everywhere. Excuse me. Yeah, the rocks going everywhere. There's a tent here. Again, scale and position. Boom. I'm pretty sure the time remapping is got 2 layers. Okay, so now that I'm here and we're thinking about it, let's go over the color correction. I might have said this in the last tutorial. I'll repeat it again. I don't want to be that guy and be annoying about it. I'm not with pirating effects. If you do that, that's on you. I will work with what I have unless I choose to buy it. So these all of this stuff that I use to color correct this, and again, you probably get better stuff with like Magic Bullet looks and all that, but I'm working with what I got. And so yeah, this is how I did the color correction. Let me maybe find another clip that's a bit better. Millennia, these clips were really hard to get right, and I'm not the best at like doing any sort of color correction, color grading, and stuff like that. Sorry, let's just find a good clip that we can. The Radon one might have been the best. This color correction here is pretty bad in my opinion. Yeah, let's go back to the Radon clip. So the first thing I did, and that I always do, that I pretty much learned recently and I'm still learning, is, so this is the base clip. This is what it looks like. First thing I do is add a levels, and I don't think I went through and did each one individually. You sure can. In some clips I do go through the RGB and do it individually, but here I just pulled it to where it looked like it needed to be. You want to search for realism in these basically, and so you don't want to wash everything out like this and make it super white, but you also don't want it to look like that. So there's a fine middle. I usually try to pull the input white, I believe, to right where the first color starts or ends. And that can help make a pretty big difference. And then you can use the gamma to gauge where you want it to be for, you know, RGB or each individual color. I really wasn't worried about the color correction too much for these clips. I just like, if you can make it good enough, I think that works. There's no point in spending an absurd amount of time on color correction. Next thing I added is just a simple curves. Like there's really nothing to it. It's very subtle. I didn't pull it up too much because that just looks whack, and I didn't pull it down too much because same thing with levels. You just go with what looks good. Don't overdo it and don't overthink it. Brightness and contrast, 50 brightness and 12 contrast. This is what it looks like without it. It pulled the literally the brightness and contrast out a little bit more, more so on him than anything. And then we have a lumetri color, which this is where most of the work is done. Like I would be fine just throwing lumetri color on every clip and doing some color correction with that, and this still isn't great. You can see like these green pixels popping out everywhere, and yeah, could have done better, but again, we just went with what was best. These are the settings I went for, and so when I show you these settings, this is not set in stone. You can throw this on any clip and it's going to look good. You got to kind of know what you're doing here. A good thing that I like to do is when I throw on lumetri color is I will turn the contrast down a lot to help kind of get everything, the colors level where we can adjust them individually. The exposure's at 0.2. Pulling it up more would have just washed out the clip. Pulling this down more washes it out a lot. What else do we have? Yeah, so I like to use these the shadow and highlight tints a lot. I also turn the sharpness up to like 50 for every clip I have Lumetri color on. The vibrance is set at 45, but I pulled it to a bluer tone because if you go with orange, yes, that doesn't look awful, but it's still like way too much. And you can, again, experiment however you want, find what looks good, but overall, the color correction and color grading needs to fit the edit. It doesn't need to just look good for each individual clip. Like, you could do nothing but throw this faded film over it, and if it fits your edit, it's going to look amazing, and it's going to push the emotion even more. So yeah, don't get caught up in like all these other tutorials people make that you just pretty much copy what they have, and then it doesn't end up working for you because that's just not how it works. Yeah, so the color wheels, I have the shadows set to like a bluer tone. It's a pretty dramatic color correction, I would say. Not super bad. I pulled up the highlights a lot. And yeah, I don't think I did anything else. And I always throw an unsharp mask to just bring out some more detail at the end. The amount is at 50, the radius is at 80. And I do this for every clip. I will, a lot of times, like, I will hold shift, click the bottom one, and Command C, copy these settings, and I will go to the next clip and throw them on. I did that for this one, and then I just go and tweak each individual one until I get what I'm looking for. So yeah, each clip is different, but same settings. And again, I'm still learning this. I'm not perfect at color correction. It's something I'm trying to get better at with every edit. But yeah, so impact frames. We've got obviously Radon, time remapped, and the scale and position controls for this one. There's nothing, because the camera hits, it pulls out even more. There's no reason for me to try to scale in anywhere and try to fight the natural clip progression of it just pulling out, right? Like there's nothing I could have done here to, it just would have ruined it. But yeah, the time remapping is, so we have, I'll show you the graph, and this is pretty much, this is pretty much the graph I go with right here. It's just a fast in, fast out is what I named it. Sure, there's some technical name, I don't really care. But so yeah, we have his swords coming out, slows down while he's pulling the blades out, speeds up to them hitting down. So I wanted out, slow motion, down. And then we have it slow, slow, slow. And I stopped the time remap about right here. It's not where the clip ends, and this is something that could be important for you guys. But the clip goes all the way to here. There's a bit of a camera shake. Not that I did, but that's just on the raw clip. But this was the best part, where these rocks start covering this screen the most. And so I left that there to help with the transition. Like, sure, I could have done it to here, but having these rocks here and filling up the screen is going to help me go from this clip to, we push away. Sorry, I need to make sure I had these settings, or these position and scale values right. Anyways, position and scale are where they are, and then we have it moving left. So the position goes this way, away from him, and the scale zooms in, and we're straight to Millennia, who is facing him that way. I mean, again, if you guys know how Flow Edit works, you know that, like, this kind of movement, there's no other way to do it. Like, it would be very very stupid for me to go this way instead, you know, because she's looking towards him on the right. Anyways, that's pretty self-explanatory, I believe. But all right, yeah, let's keep going. So for this one, these positions, we have it coming in from this way. It's not gonna load. This clip is taking a lot, a big toll on my computer. We have the scale in, and then it pulls out. So we're going from this way towards her, and we're pulling out. The only other thing that I have here is this is some really simple compositing, and to be completely honest, it's pretty bad. But I have this sword mask. Oh, it's just gonna open the... So what I wanted to do is I wanted to have the sword... That's just not gonna work, I guess. I wanted to have the sword have this kind of light sweep going across it, and you can barely see it right here. If I turn it off, you can really see it. But since it's time remapped in a way where it is slowing down as she's pulling the sword across her, what I did was I just went frame by frame and masked where the sword was, and then I threw on a... Well, there was already a motion tile on the clip. You don't actually need that, though. I threw on a light sweep, and so the center of the light sweep starts here, and then it goes to here, so it follows the opposite motion of the sword. It goes from left to right as the sword's going from right to left. And then there's also a deep glow. And I didn't set the light color to white because, again, just like compositing stuff, if you set it to white, it doesn't look awful. Actually, yeah, it doesn't look great. I set it to yellow because that was like the brightest color in the clip. I think I just like got it from somewhere on her armor. The deep glow is at an exposure of 0.01 and a radius of 100. If I like reset it, it just looks really bad. Yeah, see, that's just, to me, it's too much. You want it to be subtle. You want to feel it more than you actually see it sometimes. So yeah, that's a small compositing thing. But yeah, we have... I actually don't know why there's another keyframe here in the middle, because these positions don't change. So you don't actually need this. Ignore these keyframes right here. Actually, no, they did need to be there, I guess, because yeah, so then we pull in. So okay, now I'm understanding it. So we have her pulling the sword out. We're just going to play it in here. We have her pulling the sword out. And then right after this keyframe, it goes in to her like being ready to go at him. So when it's pulling out, we don't have any sort of... We let it stay open. Like, we let it breathe. We want the clip to show that something's about to happen. And then as soon as it pushes in, which is what these keyframes do, the scale goes from 100 to 115. I think I changed the position a little bit. I also have these black bars, or it's just called CC jaws. I have them pop in to kind of just zoom in and force a little bit more of the focal point onto her and show that something's going to happen. I know that's not a very great in-depth explanation, but try it out on your clips and you will be able to feel if it works. A lot of people use it way too much and will put like colors and make it like squiggly. And again, sometimes it fits those edits, but sometimes it just looks weird. And then we have like some impact frames right here of her moving, and you can see how awful the color correction is. Well, it's still pretty bad, but since it was on quarter of quality, it was really bad. But yeah, we have her moving, and those keyframes, again, scale stops here, but the position goes with her this way, in the way she's moving. The only other thing I have on this layer is a dust overlay. You can't really see it, but again, yeah, you can kind of see them over here on this side. I felt like dust fit the place, like where these clips are taking place, and it's set to lighten. There's a tint on it of this yellow I took like somewhere from her armor, because again, like they could be white, but it's just like, I don't know, it doesn't blend well in with this, because there would be no white dirt here, I don't think. I think there would be this kind of yellowish brown color. Okay, so we have it going from here into this clip of her. Oh, is there a lens flare on this as well? Yeah, there is. So there's a lens flare over here on this right side. You can't really see it. I made it like super subtle, but it was just to add more of that like cinematic feel. Again, Sapphire plugin. I don't know if it's gonna show me which one I'm using. Yeah, definitely didn't want like a, I don't even know why this, I think it was this one, this JJ Blip Flare version 2. I wanted one that was like flat and had this kind of like blur going from left to right or horizontally to be in addition to the movement of where she was going. And so we have it over here on the right, because that's where it seems like the light is coming from. As you can tell, like this side of her armor is dark, but this side is light. So we put a little lens flare. Again, you cannot really even see it, but just for some small additional stuff. This layer has a lot in it. So again, position is coming from this way, carrying that movement from the last clip. This one's probably not gonna load at all, but yeah, we have more dust here. You can't really see it. We have a camera lens blur. Okay, so this is, I'm gonna show you guys how I do these blur maps. And I think this is the first time in an edit I've actually done one. So what you do is, we have a shape layer here, and it's called blur map, and this is what it looks like if it loads. Yes, this is what it looks like, and there's a fastbox blur on it. I'll turn it off for now, just so we can see a bit better. But all it is a circle or an ellipse with a black fill and a stroke that's like huge, and all I did was scale it up. I don't know, yeah, there's some position keyframes on that, or on this. And what you do is, this basically works as like a vignette. Like you could use vignette instead of this. But anyways, I made this layer and it's set to where she is in this composition. So she's right here. I wanted to show her face. You can see this cutoff line right here since we turned off the fastbox blur. So I'll turn it back on just so you can see where it goes away. Helps it blend a little bit more. We're gonna keep it off for now, because I want y'all to see this movement. So we go from her face, it's keyframed right here in the same spot, to it slowly moves from, again, this position to over here. Can I just like, yeah, okay. This is how it goes. It goes from right to left to right. And so the reason it does that is because right here at this keyframe, her sword starts coming out of the side of the clip. So boom, her armor breaks. We show her face, and then I want to show her sword coming out, and you can tell she grabs it right here. So we've got two different motions. we have her face being shown, and then we have this blur map going from showing her face to be showing the focal point of her sword popping up over here and dragging the viewer's eye from here to here. I know I'm kind of repeating the same thing over and over again, but the way we get that to blur properly is you make an adjustment layer and you add a camera lens blur. The blur radius, there's no keyframes at all. I set the blur radius to 20. The shape's a nonagon, and the blur map is set to this blur map layer, or this shape layer that I renamed blur map. And also make sure you do effects and masks. And so it blurs the white values. So where it's black is the focal point. This is going to be clear, but this white out here is going to have the camera lens blur that's matte or layered to it. Sorry. Anyways, but again, it's got a sharp edge. So all you do is you add a fastbox blur to smooth out these edges. So one more time, goes from showing her face to we have it moving here, showing the sword, and then it just like goes with the movement of her going to the right. I'm trying to think of what else. I have a vignette here that I think is keyframed. Yeah, it's pretty much keyframed. Is it gonna show properly? No, vignette won't show, will it? But yeah, it's keyframed to do the same thing as this layer pretty much, where it's just helping push that focal point onto this sword right here. And then it travels to the right. Or no, it doesn't travel to the right, sorry. I have an opacity keyframe where it goes from 0.65 to just 0. And then the jaws opens up here. As you can see, there's 2 keyframes. So we go from this clip to it opening. Again, some dust. And then we have 2 shape layers that are there for the compositing of the sword. The keyframes are just on the opacity, so it's there to highlight the sword coming out. You can't really tell. Here, I'll turn them off. So this is what the base clip looks like, but I wanted to highlight them a little bit, and it's pretty bad. They're set to overlay. They've got a fastbox blur and a deep glow. Again, just to help people realize, okay, we're going from her face, the sword comes out, and so I wanted to highlight it where people could really tell that that's what they should be looking at this point. And the vignette helps that. So just to turn it off of the actual clip again, it would be pretty dull, but it helps. Again, it's not perfect, but yeah. So we have the motion going that way. We have her landing, just some basic keyframes of they're actually set to just nothing, but this keyframe zooms in on her face more. And what you can do is on Mac, it's Option and the like parentheses button. On Windows, it will probably be Alt and then the parentheses button to turn on this grid. And so, yeah, just have it lined up with everything, the main focal point of her stabbing him. And then we have it zooming in even more because this next clip is like close to her face, and I'll show you guys how I did this like color correction and all that stuff. The only other thing we have is, I guess I had a lens flare here, but I didn't end up using it. Let's see where it was. I have no idea where it was. Anyways, so I also have this tone transition, which, you know, I could drag right here. But because this next clip is so orange, um, I wanted to help push that more. And so what I have is just a colorama on this adjustment layer with, fire and smoke preset. And I just have the opacity of the adjustment layer from 0 to 100. And in this, we'll go over this in depth. We have the base layer of her starting to use the Scarlet Rot stuff, time remapped, and then we have S_halftone. I just really liked this look. You can see that there's some little dots right here, which is exactly what halftone is. And then there's also a colorama layer with the fire and smoke preset again. And then there's this concrete loop that I have that goes like this. It's set to add, and I believe, yeah, that's it. So you can like kind of see the concrete layer happening. If you look really closely, you can see a bit of movement, especially down here. Yeah. It's set to add. The opacity is turned down to 25% because this is what it would look like at 100. Again, I'm not saying this is bad, but it just didn't fit this edit. You can absolutely have this overlay set at 100% opacity and it look good depending on the edit. There's no rule that says not to do that. So yeah, that's the color correction and the texturizing stuff. And then we have this text, which is just her name. I feel like the font really fit her, if that makes sense. And so I have this overlay, so it just goes like this. And the way I got it to look like this is I added a tint and then a colorama. So this is what it looks like as the base thing. Added a tint to match the color grading for this scene, and then output, same thing, the fire and smoke preset in colorama. Then what I did is I pulled it over here so you can see the bounding box of where it is, and I have it animating from low to pulling up, kind of revealing more of the text. I don't think there's supposed to be another keyframe here, honestly. So yeah, it reveals more of the text, and all you do is take your text, or take your overlay, mat it to your text, and yeah, it goes from looking like that to this. And then under the text layer, I just have a stroke layer of the text with a gradient ramp, and the points are right above it and right below it. And then I have a deep glow 500.1, and it just helps give it a little bit more of a outline. So yeah, that's how it ended up looking like this. Could have probably been a little bit better, but it really didn't, need to be there. But then we go into her using it. Pretty cool scene. Just base values here, position normal, scale at 100, and then we have it zooming in. So it goes from 100 to 107, and we pulled the position up to the top of the composition. And then this position here starts going down to help with this next movement, which I will show you. And also this hotspots transition is really good. So I just keyframe. We have threshold at 0, saturation at 1, their base, or maybe not their base values. But either way, it goes to a threshold of 0.73, and we take the saturation out to make it full black and white. And then we have Mesmer's hand showing, and the way we do that is same thing. We have a motion tile on him. We have the position up, so you can't really see because of the hotspots. So let me we have the position up and coming down, and we have the scale at 118, and it like kind of zooms out, and so it looks like we're kind of going. It's just a good transition. It looks like we're going down under the clip and revealing a new one of his hand coming down. The motions match pretty much. The only other thing I have on this is this fire overlay set to add. The opacity goes from 0 to 100. So this is what it would look like without it, but I feel like it added a bit more. Same here. It's just cut. We have them kind of flying around. We have this halftone color, which goes from 0 to 43%. Or no, it goes from 0 to 100% to help with this transition. These scale and position keyframes are just literally zooming in and pushing up towards him. Yeah, this one framer right here is just a tint, and then we have a blur. It's just a regular Gaussian blur going from 0 to 12. That's what it looks like without it. And then I have this like, I don't know, I made it and I just called it Pixel Glow, and I saved it as an animation preset, I believe. Yeah. I'll show you guys how to make it though. So it's S monochrome. These are the settings. And then it's a mosaic, both set to 1000. And then it's a lot of noise set to 50. So yeah, it gives this like kind of like old retro video game vibe. I don't know. I personally really liked it, and I will probably use it more and more if it fits the edit. But yeah, straight into. So we got some like flickering basically into him. The black bars come down for just the cinematic push. We've still got the flames going around. The scale and position just goes into him. And I'm trying to think of what else we have going on here. So I have this clip of him duplicated 3 times. And I'm pretty sure there's a mask. Yeah, so this one has a mask, and it's his eye. And I just set a leave color, and I took the little highlight pen and clicked on the yellow of his eye, set the amount to 100, the tolerance to 100, and a deep glow on it. What else is here? I don't think anything else is. So yeah, it goes from like flickering, and then I have it the opacity of this layer just like going from 0 to 100 to where it's like keeps with this Pixel Glow monochrome color into full color of him. What else do we have here? So then I threw on this tone transition, same thing I did for, I'm gonna turn these off for now. I did for the Millennia thing, where we make it warmer as it's going into it. It's the same stuff, just colorama, and it's keyframed from 100 or 0 to 100. And then the other one framers I have here is I have the Pixel Glow again into a tint, but yeah, it's barely doing anything. And then I have offset to push it like that way, because that's the way in this next clip he's going to end up over here on this side. So just to help with that, I pushed him with just an offset one framer that way. Here we have lens flare, and it's keyframed. So at first it's at 50%, and it's set right on his eye, and then it goes to 0, and then it goes to 100. I think it looks really, really cool. Make sure you put all of these one framers and layers under the jaws black bars thing, because it will absolutely it'll it'll mess a lot of things up, and it will basically be putting it on top of it. So the black bars will be affected. So make sure you put those on top of your effects. So I just have it in. I don't have it keyframe out, so they keyframe in while it's zooming into him, and then it just is gone. I have Minimax set here. It's set to just horizontal because that's the way we're going. We're not going up, we're going right. Set to maximum, the radius goes from 0 to 100 and then back to 0. But yeah, it makes a pretty cool looking effect here. And then we have a one framer of a directional blur on top of it to, you know, these highlights are a little bit too much, and the blur just helps like drown it out a bit. And then we have lens flare again, and it is set to his eye. Let me see if they're keyframed. Yeah. And then it's 100 on his eye, 0, 50. Same thing as this one right here, but just backwards. So yeah, and then this design was pretty simple. I have a plugin I made called Grid Composer, where you can I talked about it in the Berserk breakdown, I believe, but it's got a lot of like editorial, UI, style, social stuff, or you can just do a custom one. So you can like click, split it horizontally 4 ways. You can make the gap larger or smaller. The padding can come down. You can number them, or you can create nulls for them, or like both, and you just do create and comp. So like it will literally add all of these blocks. Good for design stuff. So yeah, I made 2. One is here, and then one is over here, and I just matted this clip that was before this one. Yeah, the same one we've been working on, and it's the same thing, right? Halftone as Millennia, halftone colorama, this concrete texture. The text is just copy and pasted, but with a different font and his name. So yeah, this is what it looks like, and I just have him slowly. On this one, he's scaling in, and on this one, I believe he's scaling out. So, yep. Then we go into, okay, yeah, we have another hotspot, which this shouldn't be this far up here. Another hotspot for this transition into Malekith's hand. There's another blur map here, and all it does is it just like scales down to give focal point onto his hand. So there's a blur map. There's also a vignette. I'll take all those off to just like, so you can see a little bit of the, it's very subtle, but these extra steps for like compositing and just for like scenes in general will help push the believability and whatnot. We've got scale and position, so it just like zooms in right to, again, right into the middle. If you guys don't use this grid layout, I definitely would. Again, for Mac, it's just option, like the quotation or parentheses thing, keybond. Sorry guys, I'm not used to recording, and I've been going on for like a while here, so it's a lot on my brain, to be honest, but we're gonna keep moving. And then we have another Minimax thing effect, and when we go just position from left to right, it scales out. And I have a motion tile on all of these layers. So what I did is time remap them. You throw on all your color correction, then you pre-compose it, and then you throw motion tile on. It's just too much to have like it not pre-comped, because then you're working with a layer that's time remapped. It's got all this crap on it for color correction. Then you throw a motion tile on it. Better to just pre-comp it and just have motion tile on the pre-comp. So yeah, we're here to him. just a mini max transition. I didn't choose to use any directional blur with it. Zoom into him, and then it goes down to mimic the sword, because right after this motion it goes up to him pulling the sword out. And this right here is just a tint keyframe to go from, it's a tint and directional blur keyframe. They both go from 0. The directional blur is set 0 straight up vertically. The blur length goes to 110, and the amount goes to 100. There's actually no shakes throughout this whole edit. I don't know if anybody notices. People are usually pretty... A lot of editors don't like when you don't use shakes, but a lot of these clips have a natural shake to them. You can kind of see it moving here a little bit. Like sometimes adding less is more, right? You know, I'm sure you guys have heard that a lot, but it really is. So same thing here. I just copy and pasted the tint and directional blur. It doesn't need anything else. Like, it looks good. I think I probably could have like pulled these out a little bit more. Let's just do that and see what it looks like. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't look too bad in my opinion, but it's not that big of a difference, you know? Experiment with little stuff like that, because you can get some crazy results with it. But yeah, no shakes throughout this whole thing. This is just a directional blur to the right, and it also, oh no, sorry, yeah. So this is a tone transition, same thing as always, as the last two. And then the position and scale go from here over to the right. Same thing in here. It's just copy and pasted stuff. Just copy and paste stuff from Mesmer and Millennia. And yeah, the text is the same, just a different font. I felt like this font fit him a little bit more. Yeah, there's nothing else to it. And then finally, we have this clip just like going, and then the opacity just slowly fading out. And once it gets to about here, the way I did this little like end screen was, this is just like a film burn overlay. It's not gonna load. So yeah, just some scratch film burn overlay. All of these layers have a little bit of deep glow on them, and every single, not layer, sorry, all of the text has deep glow on it and a displacement map, both of these set to 2, and they're on this TV glitch overlay. So this glitch is going on, but it's turned off, and all of the text is, you can kind of see it like moving around. And that displacement map is what's causing that to happen. There's also a bit of like 8mm nostalgia, like film grain going on. I've got this tritone set to it. There's a chromatic aberration layer. I think this is an Artlist plugin. Yeah, I'm using the Artlist plugin of that. You can't really see it, but it just adds a little bit. You could turn it up. Nah, I wouldn't turn it up more. It's just a hint. Some texturizing. And then yeah. And so throughout this whole edit, there's a vignette to just keep the focal point in the middle. And there's some grain. If you guys want to copy these settings, make sure you turn on monochromatic. You don't want color noise or colored grain. Again, if it fits your edit, it could look amazing. But for this one, I didn't want any. This vignette here is stronger, so I just cut it as soon as the clip started, the actual like full edit started. So yeah, guys, if I didn't cover something and I need to come back and do it, please let me know. We're about to go get into the sound effects. Sorry this was so long, but of course I want you to get what you paid for. Again, I'm not going to be giving out any project files or anything like that. This is much more valuable, to be honest. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. Always feel free to let me know if you missed anything or need help with anything. I will be glad to do so. All right, now we are in Premiere Pro and we're gonna go over the sound effects. I have the main layer right here, which this is the music layer here in orange. I have it muted, so we're only gonna be playing the sound effects. And up here, you can ignore this main bin, but these four, impacts, risers, texture, and whooshes, are all color coordinated correctly to each of these. So the only other thing I'll say is these purple ones right here, these are the audio layers of Millennia, Mesmer, and Malekith talking. I'm just going to keep them in, but just know that these don't belong in any of these four bins. But yeah, so again, the textures are highlighted in green, the whooshes are in blue, the impacts are the red ones, and the actually like only riser in here is in yellow. Honestly, risers are probably the most difficult sound effect for me to kind of pinpoint where I want to use, because there's not many, I don't want to say good ones because there are plenty of good ones, but I've yet to find where they've really been needed in these edits, and where it's kind of fine to just not have one, basically because these edits happen so fast. If there's a point where the edit slows down and for retention's sake you want to show like, hey, this just slowed down, we kind of have a beat, but now it's ramping back up into something, then absolutely use a riser. But for this, the sake of this video, I didn't really use one. I probably could have used one from going from the map animation into the main edit, but I just chose not to. Either way, let's play the edit without the music.
I am Melania, Blade of Mikola, and I have never known defeat.
My purpose standeth unchanged.
O death, become my blade once more.
All right, so actually while I'm going through these, I might mute these layers as well, just because they could have been covering the sound effects a little bit more. But either way, the first sound effect we have is this heavy wood leather sofa kind of creaking or being stretched to help with the map kind of unveiling. And you'll see what I mean here. I'll solo it. So by itself, it doesn't sound perfect, but it's good enough to push this like into being realistic and sounding correctly. Obviously, when you read that it's like a leather sofa creaking or being stretched, you might see this a little differently. But you know, got to be able to pull yourself out kind of in these edits and be able to feel that it really fits. It fits right. Next, we go into, we have a whoosh right here. It's just a main whoosh. It's like it says whoosh fast impact slap. So yes, this could be used as an impact, but you know, again, most sound effects don't belong actually where they need to go. So just keep that in mind for the rest of these as well. Next, we have these two layers. This one is like an earthquake kind of happening, and this one right under it is a sports crowd. I really wanted to keep pushing like that there's a war going on. There's probably lots of yelling and screaming and just like background noise of people. And then right after that, we have an impact. So we're going to play all 5 of these real quick. Yeah, so this impact comes in right as this. To be honest, I have no idea what these things are in Elden Ring, but it's an impact, so it hits. And at the same time down here, we have another whoosh that is going into Radon. Oh no, sorry. This whoosh is actually more of a riser, so we could change it. I'd usually probably cancel the recording and restart and change this, but I want you guys to see like where I can mess up too. But yeah, so this actually sounds more like a riser to me almost. Let's play it by itself. Boom. Yeah, I would say that's a riser. A lot of times when I think of risers, I think of more like high-pitched sounds, if that makes sense. But, this is actually a power whoosh is what it's called. But again, these sound effects just do not belong where they're supposed to go. As long as it pushes the realism and sounds like you would kind of imagine it, or, most people would imagine it, I think it works. So let's move on. We will kind of bundle these up right here and play them. So we've got some more texture right here. This is a earthquake sound, because remember there's some rocks flying over here. This one is a strong wind blowing. I kind of wanted to give a feeling because, again, he's moving these swords, and I want wind to be blowing because the rocks are flying towards the screen. If you remember while watching the After Effects breakdown, how we did that transition. But yeah, the only other thing is like just debris falling, like crashing, explosion, impact. So yeah, let's play these 5 right here. And again, if you did not watch the Berserk one, these are kind of like transitions right here, and you can easily do this by having these brackets pop up at the end of your clips, and you right click, apply default transition. It's just an easier way instead of having to keyframe, the volume here and then going to the end and turning it down. Sometimes it's better to manually go in and keyframe to adjust some of this stuff, but a lot of times it really doesn't matter if you can time it correctly and it sounds right. So next, after that, we have, and some of these sound effects are like, I went and downloaded them from YouTube. They're Elden Ring sound effects. So this one right here. It sounds more like a riser to me. And then right here we have a whoosh. So we will actually keep soloing these. We have her talking right around here, but again, I'm not going to play that. And this whoosh is like a cloth whoosh of her pulling her blade back. And then we go straight into a Elden Ring poise break sound effect, because she gets hit there. Here we have another whoosh. I can see what it is. No, I've got this. This is a slice whoosh. So right here, I wanted the silence to kind of speak for itself just a little bit, so you'll hear what I'm talking about. Actually, no, that's a lie. There's a bit of silence like right after this drops down, and it helps with the slow motion feel. So it's kind of like quickly showing this straight into an impact. This is just an Elden Ring critical hit impact. Again, we have her talking all through here. We go straight into another impact and also a whoosh. This impact is just, I'll play it right up here. And it's mixed in to hit at the same time as this whoosh does. We then have 2 more whooshes. One is a just big muffled kind of whoosh, and then right after it we have a fire whoosh, because this is when we're getting into Mesmer. And then we have this like kind of wand, it's like a spark. You'll hear what I'm talking about. Let's play that one more time. Yeah, so the spark helps because he's kind of like starting to light up whatever he does. And then again, we have this fire whoosh sound to help with the transition, because it goes from him starting it up to this next scene is him actually using it. And then we have some camera shutters here to help with the one framers. So those fit pretty perfectly. Down here we have some more kind of like camera shutter sci-fi stuff for the one framers. We have another whoosh. And then right after that, we're going to have another whoosh and some cloth fluttering. So you'll hear these for right here. So yeah, this whoosh mainly, sorry, I got a lot of layers soloed. Might be easier for me to just undo them. I'm actually not even soloing the right layers, am I? Yeah, so fire whoosh for this kind of transition, and then we have some cloth fluttering for the cloth moving out of the way of his hand. And right here is, sorry, right here is just another whoosh. I think it helps with the hotspots effect we had. Kind of feel like it's a darker transition, if that makes sense, or sound effect. Next we have another fire whoosh straight into building collapsing, but this is more of just kind of like a debris earthquake sound of like more of a rumble, if that makes sense. And then one more whoosh here is just a regular one. Very subtle. You can barely hear it. Yep, and then these last three are just some really like small texturizing stuff. So this one at the top is a sci-fi Cybertech loading bleep. I got it from Artlist. If you don't have an Artlist subscription and you can afford it, I would highly recommend it. You can just dock it here in your Premiere Pro and look for whatever sound effects, footage, music. It's great. And then this one at the bottom right here is another one. Yeah, these are two different sci-fi like loading kind of stuff. And then for texture, I just have this fading out. Helps give that kind of like burning old film kind of feeling. So yeah, the only other thing I did that I haven't done in an edit before was use a low pass on the music right here when she starts talking. So I'll play that. And I'll show you guys how to do this super fast. So all you do is add a low pass, and let me drag this out. I honestly hate Premiere Pro. Just such an old, outdated software. But we have it start at 20,000 hertz, and then we have it go after 3 to 5 frames. I have it go to 1500. Stays at 1500 throughout the whole duration, and then right before we get back into where we want it to pick up, we have it go back to 20,000. I have a keyframe here on the level, but I must have not meant to put that, so ignore this levels keyframe. But I did that so her voice could come in how it needed to. So I'll play that.
I am Melania, blade
And I wanted, as soon as she said defeat, because it just has some oomph to it, for the music to pick up and for some sound effects to hit right at that same time. So yeah, I know she doesn't start talking right when this hits, but there's a lot of impacts right here that do happen that help push what we're looking for. And it helps cover up that transition. So yeah, I didn't want to overuse the low pass. There was some, like, I would have loved to have it for the other talking points. I say talking points, but when the other voice audios come in of Malekith and Mesmer, but it just, I mean, you could look at the timeline. I would have had to put it immediately right after this one ended, and then, you know, they start talking, Malekith starts talking right here. It just would have been a lot. So yeah, hopefully that helps. This cross dissolve right here, if anybody's wondering, is just right click, apply default transition, and it literally is just a fade out. So it's just the opacity fading out without any keyframes. And then here I have the audio slowly fading out from about the, where are we at? The 23 second mark to the 26. So there's about a 3 second. Yeah. So yeah, those are the sound effects and how I chose to go about designing them. Let me know if you guys have any questions or need any help with that kind of stuff. The last thing I will say is I did add a reverb to these voices. So
I am Melania, Blade of Mikola.
So there's a bit of an echo to them if you aren't sure what reverb is. But these are my settings. I'll just give them to you guys. A lot of people do their sound effects in After Effects. If you want to do that, sure, go ahead. Premiere Pro is just so much easier. But add a bass effect, set the boost to 8, add some treble, set it to 2, add studio reverb, and then you go to custom setup, go to edit, and these are my settings. I'm pretty sure I didn't change anything. If you want a different sound, I'm pretty sure you changed the wetness, but I would keep it between 50 and like, I wouldn't go over 75 or 80. But yeah, the preset is vocal reverb large. Experiment with other ones. You know, this is just what I thought sounded good for these clips. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's all of it. But no, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for purchasing this. And please let me know if I missed anything.